It's Halloween season and it's time to review a classic heavy metal album for Halloween. Today I will be reviewing the soundtrack to the movie Trick or Treat, released on October 31st, 1986, also celebrating 38 years. This was requested by a channel member, so if you are interested in becoming a member, you can click that join button down there. Just go to my channel page and you can receive perks such as making review requests and getting early access to my videos. This is an interesting album because I think I may have listened to it many years ago. I listened to it a few times to prepare for this, and I came to some interesting conclusions. There's some things I liked, and there are some problems which I will address during my final thoughts. Let me give you some background on the band Fastway. They have an interesting history. Back in 1982, Fast Eddie Clarke left Motorhead and got together with UFO bass player Pete Way. They combined their names to come up with the name Fastway. And they also got Humble Pie drummer Jerry Shirley and vocalist Dave King, who was unknown at the time. But then Pete Way left the band way before they released their self-titled debut album in 1983. The band had a revolving lineup with Fast Eddie Clarke being the only constant member. They released a few albums in the early 80s, and Trick or Treat is actually the second album released in 1986, or it's their fourth studio album. It's also the last album with Dave King on vocals. It was released on Columbia label, and it's only 33 minutes long, so there was one single released called After Midnight, but I think the title track is probably the most popular song, as it does have 2 million plays on YouTube Music as opposed to the 1 million plays for After Midnight. Let me talk about the songs now. The album opens with the song Trick or Treat. This is the main single. It has those high-range vocals. The sound of the song reminded me of the band Wasp. It's that typical heavy metal song. It has the sustained power chords, a catchy chorus, and the guitar solo was very melodic. Next is the song After Midnight. This one sounded more like an AC/DC type of song. It had the big guitar chords. It had that galloping sound. The chorus was also very catchy. It was like a mix between the hard rock of AC/DC and the heavy metal of the 80s. The guitar solo was brief, but worked well in the song. This went into the bridge, and then that was pretty cool. But overall, not too bad. Another catchy song. Then it was Don't Stop the Fight. This was like a mix between Def Leppard and Wasp. It had that particular guitar sound. It was a radio-friendly type of song. It also had a little bit of darkness. It's a good song for a Halloween playlist or something like that. Overall, these first 3 songs have been very catchy. This also has some evil voices added onto it as well. It's not too bad, and I like the harmonized guitars. The next song is called Stand Up. This was cool. It had a thick bass guitar intro. It was a slower track, but it was still a heavy song. This one had some big guitar chords, but the guitar didn't overpower the bass guitar. As with most of the other songs that had a big chorus, there was a melodic guitar solo in the middle of the song, and you could hear the bass guitar very well. This was a good track, one of the slower ones, but not necessarily a power ballad. It was more of a big arena rock song. The next song was called Tear Down the Walls. This one had a cool intro. It sounded like it came from a horror movie, had lots of weird sounds where you didn't know what was going on, but then it went into the song. They had these big guitar chords. At first it sounded something like Wasp, but then it went to like this AC/DC style rhythm, but then back to those strange horror movie sounds. It was a strange song, and it was very short, only 2 minutes long, so it almost like sounded incomplete. The next song was called Get Tough. This one had some creepy sounds in the intro, but the song itself sounded like a typical heavy metal song. I thought it was very representative of the times. It was leaning towards glam rock, reminded me of Quiet Riot with Kevin DuBrow. They also added some scary background sounds. In general, one of those big arena rock songs. The next song was Hold On to the Night. This was a hard rock song. It kind of reminded me of a cross between Van Halen's Hot for Teacher mixed with a song Radar Love. The song was not too bad. It had a sound that was in line with the rest of the album. The next song was called Heft. This was a good song because it had this slow and ominous intro with a slow building rhythm. Another song that reminded me of Wasp, but this was one of the darker and heavier songs. It didn't have that radio-friendly sound as most of the other songs in the album. I thought it was a cool deep cut because it had a darker sound. The song also picked up the pace in the second part. So it was one of the songs that stood out in the album. It was also the longest song at 5 minutes, so there was like this extended jam session at the end of the song. And the last song was If You Could See. It was a power ballad. Had that typical power ballad style, the softer verse, the heavier chorus, some chugging guitars. There was a cool middle section with some clean guitar strumming. I thought that part of the song stood out. At the end of the song, it had one of those like shredder style guitar solos. So now for my final thoughts. I think I enjoyed the album much more after a few listens. At first I thought it was just another generic 80s style heavy metal and arena rock album, but after a few listens, the songs began to grow on me. I also noticed that there was this horror movie vibe to many of the songs. So for that reason, I would say this would be a good album to play for Halloween, as it's a heavy metal album and the type of album that would be accessible for the average listener, so you can just throw it on at a party. It's not like strictly for metalheads. But if I have some complaints that I wanted to address, that the album felt very short, which is not always a bad thing, but I think for this kind of music, which is kind of like fun, I think they could have extended the run times of the song. So, for example, the song Tear Down the Walls, as I was talking about before, it felt very short. And as I was listening to that song, like I wanted more of it. And then there were two songs that were originally on previous albums. I'm not sure if they're the same exact song or re-recorded or remixed or something of that nature, but they were Heft, which was from the debut album, and If You Could See from their All Fired Up album. So there were two songs that were recycled. So that's like kind of another negative for me. So I will be reviewing the Trick or Treat movie soon. I haven't done it at the time of this recording, but in the meantime, I'm going to link another video I did where I talk about Ozzy Osbourne's scene in this Trick or Treat movie. Put that right there. And thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe. If you're not already, I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and classic album reviews. Check my channel page. I have merch. I'll be showing my t-shirt as soon as I get it in. And I have coffee mugs, and I have channel memberships. So I'll see you in the next one.